Franz Kafka was born July 3, 1883, in Prague. His father was domineering, emotionally distant, and physically imposing. He felt belittled, misunderstood, and powerless in his presence. His famous works are The Metamorphosis, The Trial, The Castle, and In the Penal Colony. Kafka's works reflect existential themes like isolation, absurdity, and the search for meaning in a meaningless world. He deeply influenced modern literature. Franz Kafka was known for his portrayal of alienation, psychological anxiety, powerlessness of the individual, and nightmarish realism. Franz Kafka's writings have had a profound influence on many writers, philosophers, and artists across the 20th and 21st centuries. His novel The Stranger and essay The Myth of Sisyphus show Kafka's influence. Franz Kafka died on June 3, 1924, at the age of 40.
Hello and welcome to the third episode of our podcast on modern literature. I'm your host Shadman Sakib and this is my co-host
Ayash Mohammad.
And today we are joined by our beloved Shihab Saqib, sir. Hello, sir.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you
Pleasure.
here with us and thank you for giving us your valuable time. So our episode today is going to be on who can possibly be considered one of the most influential, if not the most influential author of modern day literature, Franz Kafka.
Well, that is debatable, but yeah, of course, we can consider him very, influential, because there is a term.
Kafka is.
Kafka.
We will come back to that later, I think. But yeah, I think his influence is very permeating through most of modern literature. Would you not say that?
Absolutely. I mean, if you refer to the modern period or modernist literature of the early part of 20th century, that he did not get that good reception during his lifetime, but later he was regarded as very, very influential, especially some of the most prominent authors of the 40s, like Camus, I guess, and other similar-minded existential authors were influenced by Kafka. And even in our time, this 21st century, we are pretty much into the Kafkaesque, into that trend. We can sense him, we can feel his style, his motive, the way he saw the world. I mean, we are able to translate the world through his lenses, even in 21st century.
To a degree, probably experience it a little too. I'm sure.
Absolutely.
In a way, he reminds me a bit of Vincent van Gogh, because Van Gogh was also not very well known during his
Lifetime, yeah.
but he only became famous once he passed away.
That's the sad reality of many artists, I guess, artists and authors.
It's
They
unfortunate.
aren't valued when
Yeah.
they're alive.
It's only after they're dead that people realize the value of their work.
Exactly.
Let's start with the man himself a little. Franz Kafka. Tell us a little bit about his mental state, the mind of this author when he first started.
Well, what I remember of reading about Kafka is that primarily he belonged to a family. I mean, he was pretty much influenced by his maternal side. I mean, he came from an Orthodox Jewish background, and they were very spiritual. So initially that influence was there, but his mother was not the actual influence. He was technically affected by the relationship he had with his father in a negative way, not in a positive way. But that negative impression sort of made Kafka into the man he became. And we read about and we experienced through his write-ups. So yeah, the relationship with his parents was kind of ambiguous. It was a bit love or hate, and at the same time, it was very problematic.
It was.
It was.
His father was like a businessman, like a very hardcore businessman.
He was a hard man.
Yeah.
He thought
He had a very strict vision of what he expected, yes, what his son should be.
because he was weak when he was born.
Right.
Kafka.
It makes sense. He also had he had a very strained relationship history too. He could not keep any of the
Lover in his life.
any of his
Feliz
relationships. Yeah, that was the first
First lover.
Feliz Lover, yeah.
Yes.
He met him at Max Broad's home, I think his best friend.
Exactly. And he was engaged to her twice, but that didn't work out. He was once again in a relationship. I guess I don't know whether he was in any other relationship that really impacted him, but he was in another serious relationship. I don't remember the lady's name at this moment, but yeah, none of his relationships actually lasted, and it's partly due to his physical condition as well.
Oh yeah, tuberculosis.
Tuberculosis.
Yeah.
And at that time, it was incurable. He eventually passed away due to tuberculosis. So, a very unfortunate life.
And it seems like the sort of mental beatdown his dad gave him as he wrote over the course of his childhood and as he became an adult really affected the relationships he built later in.
Psychologically, it, I mean, totally transformed him into probably the person he became and affected the relationships.
His professional life wasn't much different either. He went through some very dead end jobs almost, I think. Like I think he worked as an accountant for a while.
For a while, but he was a legal consultant mostly, and he was very good at his job. He was a hard worker, and I mean, he was a perfectionist.
He was devoted to his job.
Very much devoted to his job. He didn't like it, but he never neglected his responsibility. He used to write late at night because that's the only time he could get to actually practice his creative faculties. And that sort of created the pressure, the stifling. He wanted to express himself perhaps through writing, the creative self, but he wasn't really getting the, space as well as the time.
And after he get his illness gets spread, he got a sense of relief that he could work on his writing more.
Yes, exactly. Sadly, that he was in his personal life, what I read about him, he was a very humorous, intelligent type of person. Although his literature reflects a very grim reality. But if you read Kafka, personally, when I read Kafka, like The Trial and Metamorphosis, to name a few, I felt there is this inherent dark humor in it, and probably not all readers can appreciate it.
I felt that very much when I was reading Metamorphosis, where they just kind of state the fact that he turns into an insect so casually. It's like, but he couldn't move because he was...
The same thing happens in The Trial as well. It begins with
two policemen.
Yeah, that suddenly he wakes up to his 30th birthday, and there are two unknown individuals in his apartment. He was waiting for his breakfast to arrive, but it never came. It was two individuals who just told him you were arrested.
He didn't even know what...
Out of the blue.
Out of the blue, for no reason at all.
That is the essence of the absurdism in his literature. It's so abrupt. If you have got the opportunity to read The Judgment, probably, you will also find that that particular novel, it's said that The Judgment is basically, it reflects his relationship with his father more acutely. And that particular novel, I guess, is more interesting in the sense that it starts very mundanely. It is a very, a novel where this character is not really going through anything specific. He has a stable life. Nothing wrong is about to happen. Then he has this conversation with his father, and things fall apart. And it just dives down into that absurd depth. So that is a very interesting feature of Kafka's writing.
I think we can finish up the conversation about his life with a small discussion on his best friend, I believe, was Max Brod.
Yes. So he met Max Brod in while he was a student, right, in the graduate school, and he did have connection with the group of authors at that time. Max Brod was a minor author in a sense, but he was definitely the person who had the biggest imprint on him. I mean, on a personal level. And it is because of Max Brod that we are, as readers, we are able to enjoy his works, right? Because Kafka's instructions were very simple before his death and everything. So his write-ups were actually very personal. That's what I feel. He never wanted these to go public, but eventually it went public, and thanks to Max Brod, I guess.
I feel like that is a pretty good, like, we should give him credit because, like, yes, they were personal works, but a part of me feels like people needed to see these. They are really reflections of the time and the kind of societal structure that people used to grow up in a lot of the times.
The societal structure still, I mean, persists in our time. We see the same stifling situation within family, within society.
Definitely. It doesn't even matter which social class you come from. It seems to be like every social class.
Yeah.
Every social strata. There is this cry for help. You want to shout out that I want out, but there is no out of this spiral.
There's no escape.
There is only descent. We just go down. And that brings us to maybe the trial.
The trial, the first what
It gets worse and worse.
I think that's like the first of his work that became famous. The trial.
Yes. Yeah.
It follows, what was his name? Joseph K.
Joseph K. And so this character discovers that he is, I mean, guilty of something. He doesn't know.
He doesn't know what it is.
A court that is not really defined, and he's just given a summons that you're supposed to show up. And what struck me when I read the trial for the first time was the description of the court. I mean, it's so indefinite. It's in a building where basically a court is not supposed to sit. It's not a courthouse, right?
Courthouse. Oh, as I remember as well.
And he even can't find the actual place where he is being summoned. I mean, the court is in session. He is unable to find the location. Only a washerwoman helps him. Yeah. That it's probably there.
I think that's what brings me to the thing about the trial that I took away the most, which was the complete spaghetti of bureaucracy.
Right. I mean, there is no untying of the knots. It's just completely tightening its grip, and the more you try to untie a part, the worse it gets.
There's no escape.
Yeah. It's like layers of systems on top of systems, and they just keep adding more and more. And it becomes like almost, I think the term for it is Byzantine bureaucracy, I think, because it's just that confusing.
Exactly. And it is the very petty people who are in control, who are in charge. So you never get to find the, I mean, real person, the real guy behind it. Who is in charge?
And he doesn't even know what he's guilty of.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just paperwork after paperwork. Nobody reads. It's just piling up.
He does, it gets worse. Like, he doesn't even know what he did.
Also, another thing that gets me is none of the people involved seem to really have an idea of what his crime is. Like, some of them say his crime is not that serious.
And some of them says, like, it's very serious.
Very serious.
Yes, even his lawyer is not much of a help, and he is quite ambiguous with his intentions. If I quote maybe T.S. Eliot, insidious intent. If you read the first few lines of J. Alfred Prufrock.
Yeah, the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. Yeah.
So the streets that follow like a tedious argument of insidious intent. It just takes you down into that alley where you can never come back.
The another thing that struck me about the trial was how anything he did also just make things worse for him. Like you said, it's like things just get worse,
Worse
and
and
worse. It's like not only is this system confusing, you
But-
don't even know how to fix this.
And whatever he does to fix it gets
Makes
more
it worse.
makes worse.
Yeah.
Right. There is no way to fix it. And there is one interpretation that is often made by critics, is that it can be probably a symbolism of the idea of the divine God who is inexplicable, right? And the idea that human beings are born with sin and they're meant to suffer without any purpose.
But why is the question? It takes us back to Waiting for Godot.
Exactly. You can align these texts. That's the beauty of modernist literature. They're so versatilely different from one another, but yet at the same time, they can be aligned.
There's connection.
There is connection. They talk about the same trauma, the trouble that individuals face, or we face collectively as part of a community, of a meaninglessness, purposelessness at its core.
Seems to be the running theme of modern literature, like one of the running themes. I'm sure there are others, but
This is, fundamentally an existential question.
Yeah.
What is interesting about, Kafka is that he was an existentialist in a sense before traditional existentialist theories. The theories came into fruition much later, but he sort of foresaw. That's the beauty of, these literary figures. They're able to foresee, they have the vision. Even if you talk about the trial, Kafka technically is able to foresee totalitarianism even before it was actually in shape. He criticized totalitarianism.
this is before the rise of Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union's
Soviet.
actual autocratic movements almost. So yeah, it makes sense. Like in a way, that you mentioned that the two police officers who show up at the beginning, they're almost like the secret police.
Secret
like,
police.
The Secret Service.
Yeah, like the Gestapo for the Nazis, or any of the other ones for the Soviet Union. Another thing that I do want to mention about the trial that also was very interesting is how there was this feeling of Joseph constantly being judged and seen by people, right?
There is always someone seeing him.
Someone looking at
Someone watching.
someone
Yeah.
watching.
Like I think the one you mentioned before, was how there was a point where he's talking and there's nobody else there,
Nobody else there.
but there were these
Kids.
bunch of kids, yes,
Bunch of kids.
who
Yeah.
were still commenting on
Commenting, judging him.
what he was saying,
Saying. Yeah.
and making comments on like his actions and
Yes.
things.
It's absolutely nightmarish, the sense of reality that you're constantly being watched. So these characters have this neurotic tendency. Once again, you will find this in Prufrock as well, where he is constantly, even before he's talking with, getting a chance to talk with the ladies in the quote-unquote room, he's already thinking so many things, that they're judging me, my appearance, my person, my personality. Even my thoughts are being judged. That's the scariest.
He's having more anxiety.
Yeah, it's that. It's like the fear of there being no privacy and everybody just constantly looking at
Looking
it,
at
which is, we are in the 21st century. I think that is a reality for
Reality,
us
like-
We are not afraid anymore.
now. There's a webcam on everything. Somebody's watching us constantly. But yeah, I think the trial's whole, I think the very most striking feeling that the trial, I think, gives people is just the raw helplessness. I think it's just
He knows, but he can't do anything about it.
Yes, there is no way out of it. The ultimate way is down. And to quote maybe Auden, if you remember the Shield of Achilles, there is this line that the men died before their bodies did, right? So if you look at all the characters, all the protagonists in Kafka's works, all they have fatal ends, right? So he's a fatalist in a way, but in some cases we don't get to know what happens to those characters in some of the novels, but we can sense that they have died, at least internally, if not externally.
I guess we can move on to the other story where the protagonist definitely had a very fatal end. That was probably his most famous work, which is
Metamorphosis.
I mean, popularized because how it is so different in a way.
It is, I think.
Because he just wakes up as an insect.
Yeah.
Insect, yeah.
It is like, we can count that as an absurdist, right?
I mean, all his works are technically absurdist. And this strikes the most absurdist because someone has just woke up and transformed into an insect. One funny thing about it is that there is a common perception that that insect is a cockroach, which is wrong. I mean, Kafka never specified. He only mentioned that it is an unclean creature, right? He mentioned that it is something absolutely just grotesque, disgusting. And when I read about that description, what struck me is that, is this somehow an allegory? Probably, definitely not a direct allegory, but could this be an allegory? Could this be studied as an allegory to the fall of Lucifer? I mean, his metamorphosis into the unclean being, and God being the judge who decided the fate. I mean, if you compare this with Old Testament, I mean, Kafka being culturally Jew and not traditionally a Jew, he was an atheist. And so was he criticizing the faith? I mean, the way they viewed God? Right.
That is interesting. I don't think anybody has ever.
Yeah.
I've ever heard anybody take that approach to the story.
Yes.
Because the transformation of Gregor Samsa into a beetle was never explained. But what we can understand that this was a form of dehumanization manifested literally. And in Satan's case, there are some explications, obviously, but there is that transformation into a completely degenerate self of the glorious individual that probably he was.
Yeah, Samsa was the person who apparently earned the bread for the family.
Yes.
So he was he was kind of an important figure and not unloved.
He was the
by,
only one, yeah.
Right, he was
Not-
unloved.
He was not unloved by his family before his transformation. So that really does like take very similar steps. to
How
what
life
happened.
can change.
Yeah, and
Old Testament, actually, God is a very angry God. I mean, in contrast to New Testament, the God of Old Testament is an angry God.
very
Full of wrath.
very apocalyptic.
Right.
Very easily punishes those under like those on earth with very, I would say, brutal punishments. I
Brutal
guess.
punishment.
Yes, the New Testament God is very different from that. But yes, I would say that parallel between Lucifer and
I think it can be a very interesting study.
could be, yes. I guess Paradise Lost and Metamorphosis would be an
Right.
interesting write-up. One of the things that I think when I first read Metamorphosis, what stuck with me the most was when he wakes up and discovers himself as an insect. He's thinking about how he can't go to work more than
Yeah.
anything else.
He doesn't care about himself.
Yeah.
He looks like an insect, but he cares about providing for his family instead of himself.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, going on with his usual routine life.
Which I think added a bit more of the absurdist theme to the story. But it also, I read it as something like, we are so engrossed in our daily routine of working a job and coming back and earning for the family and all of that nothing else happens to you and it really matters all.
We sort of take it for granted, this pure absurdity of our existence. We never question it. But it is only when Kafka, through this really absurd narration, he shows us that how absurd is our existence, our reality, the construct that we, perceive as reality. We have dehumanized ourselves. to be frank. I mean, when we have accepted this form, this authoritarian body to control every aspect of our lives, and we don't have that room or freedom, I guess, to express ourselves. So just like Gregor Samsa, his creative self was sort of muted. Right?
He originally had other hobbies. Like
Yes.
art.
That was one of his escapes from this grim and dehumanizing reality. Right? But it was not recognized.
I feel like this should emphasize on the importance of having hobbies in life to a
He
degree.
used to crawl on his arse in the walls.
I think that's why I suggest everybody should have hobbies to just get away
Very
from
important, because on a very personal level, when I feel, that I am too much pressured with a lot of work, I just spend some time with the things I love, with the people I love, and that is a way of relieving your burden, right? It just sort of works as a medicine in a way. But for Shams, unfortunately, there was no escape other than that little hobby, because his family never understood him.
I think another author that I have to bring up for this is, weirdly, or maybe not weirdly, is J.R.R. Tolkien. And Tolkien was asked, what is the point of fantasy? And Tolkien did say, it's like, because, like, imagine being a prisoner who is stuck inside a cell. What escape does he have that will not, like, does stop him from being driven crazy? And he says we all need fantasies to escape to for a while. And I feel like
You can also think of Old Boy if you have seen the movie.
it was a Korean film.
Yes,
Is it?
that movie.
It was a Korean. Very good action scenes.
Yes, but the initial part, at least the first act of the film, where this person was also arrested without any reason.
Right. Yes. Oh, yes.
It's kind of a
Very
trial.
much like the trial. Yeah.
Yeah.
And all he could resort to his fantasy of escape. He was, gnawing away the wall, just attempting to move a brick, and he was fantasizing that this is going to be the last day of me here. Tomorrow I will be escaping this. That was the thing that was keeping him alive.
The other major theme of Metamorphosis was that idea of being stuck in a societal duty almost. Like there's expectations of you that are just put on you from almost birth, and you're just kind of expected to continue doing that again and over and over. And again, we mentioned hobbies already. None of that matters. This is the most important thing in your life.
Just provide.
Tragedy is that the fact that you have transformed into a bug and your life is ruined. That's not the tragedy. The tragedy is that you are unable to perform as a cog in the machine.
Yeah.
I feel like that is the saddest part of
The
the whole
irony of it.
Yeah. And obviously that takes us over to how his family treats him,
Treats him.
which is just tragic, because that is, I think, when the story really like gives its strongest message, in my opinion, is when everybody looks down on him instead of pitying him because he can't do the things they kind of took for granted.
They have to work on their own to provide for
Yeah.
themselves. Where
His father has to go work now.
to work
His mother
now.
has to work now.
No.
Exactly. So it's a way of, technically they had to go away from the life they were used to, and sort of that was a mess up in a way. Messed up the way of their life. Just one person's misfortune messed up the prospects of the entire family.
And it's almost like they're more annoyed than sad for him, which is the part that I think gets most readers. It's just how they.
The only person, I guess, empathized was his sister for a while. But for a while.
Even his sister becomes disgusted with him at some point.
She didn't know that he was saving for her violent lessons.
And it really brings to light how, like, they never appreciated him for him. They appreciated him for what he could provide. What he could provide, yeah. And that is the part that I think struck me personally the most. I'm sure a lot of other readers a lot as well. One of the last things we can talk about in Metamorphosis is just that feeling of abandonment that I think is very common amongst most people
Yeah.
who live in this like modern society.
He wanted to be seen at some point of his life before.
We were, I mean, if you think about, let's say, Waiting for Godot, we can also consider The Hollow Man by T.S. Eliot. This sense of abandonment or being alone is the ultimate fear, that you are abandoned, you're forgotten, you are not anymore important. That is the ultimate fear, the nightmarish fear that one cannot get rid of. Because death seems like an escape in comparison to being forgotten.
That's why
Living like in an isolated situation.
if Vladimir and Estragon even contemplate suicide for a bit as an escape.
As a mean of escaping. But they decide not to, because what will happen if one dies and the other one is left alone?
That is even worse. Considering
They were dependent on each other.
yeah, I mean, we read about how close they are throughout the story. But yeah, it's like, I think loneliness is another very pervasive theme in modernist literature.
We can also interestingly read Metamorphosis as an expressionist literature. Although Kafka was not truly an expressionist, the idea of expressionism was not well defined at that time. And I mean, technically, Metamorphosis is not an expressionist text, but there are elements of expressionism here. I mean, the imagery, the way the narrative goes, the narration goes, it sort of exaggerates certain aspects. I mean, the claustrophobia is created through the narration, and that is quite unique. And that's something once again makes Kafka such a visionary. I mean, he dealt with ideas that didn't exist when he was dealing with them.
I mean, I guess nobody else wrote about these feelings before him. At least not like we didn't know.
They didn't articulate it.
Yes, it wasn't just articulated in that way, and I guess that's really telling for the time and like what it did to people that era. And yeah, like I think as you mentioned at the beginning of this episode, all the ideas that he talks about are very much still in swing today. Particularly that like loneliness and the feeling of being abandoned, especially like in today's world where we're becoming more isolated as
more isolated with our devices, with our virtual worlds. We are living behind the relationships that actually matter. We are more focused into a virtual world of relationships, which is very materialistic in a sense.
People want to be seen.
I wonder what would Kafka write about if he lived in 21st century.
I feel like he would be quite horrified with what he would becoming across.
Yeah.
Or maybe not surprised at all. It's almost one or the other. You can't really tell, I think. As they say, poets are often prophets, I think, saying that when. But yeah, I guess we can bring our discussion to that on what kind of impact Kafka had on literature and even media.
Yes, he has influenced pop culture. Even if you think about modern shows like, let's say, the Black Mirror, we were talking about the Old Boy. We can very easily see the influence, the Kafkaesque reality in these depictions. It's very dystopian in a way.
It is very dystopian. I think like it's not that hard. Like when a writer has their name become a descriptive for, I feel like when a writer has their name become a descriptive for a whole genre or theme of literature, we have Shakespearean, we have Lovecraftian, we have Tolkien-esque. Kafkaesque is a descriptor. I think like that is a whole different level of being recognized as an author almost. But yeah, like his themes just kind of like, as you said, they permeate through even like today.
Right, time and space, permeating through time and space.
I think of an example of it that I can think of like off the top of my head is this very absurd sci-fi fantasy setting called Warhammer 40,000, I don't know if you've ever heard of it or not.
I heard about it. I've never.
It is a very old and very long-running setting. And the thing that I want to mention is the human faction of that setting, the Imperium of Man, is a massive galaxy-spanning empire where, like the trial, the bureaucracy just doesn't make sense. It is so many layers upon layers through multiple planets, like millions of planets. It's almost hard to keep up with it. And I have heard people have tried to come up with a lot of descriptors for the Imperium of Man in that setting, but the most fitting one that I've heard is Kafkaesque. That the setting is very Kafkaesque. It's like nothing makes sense. Everything is just such a mess, layers upon layers. And I'm sure like there are many more fiction, like works of fiction.
It abounds. I mean, in every genre, not just specific to a particular genre. Even it has affected motifs, styles of literature, of film and media in the grandest possible way.
And with that, I guess we will end our final episode of Modern Literature. Again, sir, thank you for joining us and giving us your precious time.
Thank you so much.
And with that, the series comes to an end. I hope you enjoyed all these amazing conversations we've had. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.